7. On this week's topic is user experience map, and we are going to go through some of the process and techniques and 3 of the most important maps that we are going to look through. Before we dive into this week's content, I wanted to spend several minutes talking about what we have studied several weeks before on the research and strategy. So basically, we used some techniques and we also made design deliverables through the past 6 weeks. The first week, we have gone through stakeholder interview and we have developed a design brief, even though it is not the event planner application, but we learned how to conduct stakeholder interviews. And we also have done competitor review, and then we have made a competitive analysis report out of that. Of course, we have also done user interview on a context in a context. So we have documented interview notes and also developed personas out of that. Because we also used the behavior variables to analyze different varieties of persona and create a variety of personas out of that. And then we have done content review, so which was on week 5 on the content inventory and analysis. So we have delivered on those Excel sheets. And then week 6 was our collaborative session that everybody has to work on the scenarios and the product requirements. So out of all those, we have basically completed all the sections on the research part on UX design. You can actually add these things in your portfolio. Thinking about that, if you have design skills, like say graphic design, you can actually make it better looking. For example, persona is a great way to showcase your design skills. If you don't like the extension, the software that we have been using in previous week, then you can actually design your own persona if you want to. Definitely go online and search personas and see how other designers are displaying their personas. You can also put together the competitive analysis and try to make them just look better to display how the different competitors compare to your to your main product. So next, what do we know about this product on the event planner? So because we are going to talk about event planner, however, for this product, we haven't done the stake interview. So in this course, I have attached a event planner UX brief in the Blackboard, even though it is not a complete brief, but this is a very good starting point for everyone to get an understanding of this event planner application. So we have learned that what the business needs to do, basically the stakeholder interviews. You guys can take a look at the UX brief. We also know who are we making the product for. Basically is the personas that we have developed. And also we know what they need the product to do is the different scenarios and the product requirements that we have made through week 6. So basically, out of all those, we have to connect things together so that we have to make some kind of UX map. UX map, in UX map, we are going to talk about 3 types of map: UX journey and UX environment design and vision diagrams. So for the UX map, there are several things I have to mention. One is the concept of map is that we move from something that is linear, like for example a scenario or a story. We move something linear into something that you can actually see everything in one space. For example, if you take a look of one picture, then you can actually see the whole flow of the product, and that's how a map's supposed to be. So just think about like if you are walking in the street, we are not just walking direction step by step anymore. In the Google Maps or GPS, what we can see is how this location exists in the whole context. So we know the position and direction of where we are, so that we know the overall picture rather than just like a linear direction. So definitely for UX map, it shows a complete picture of a product, brand, or service, and also we're looking at things in one, all in one, rather than linear in space and time. So first, let's talk about UX journey. So UX journey mainly focuses on brand or services. Basically, for UX journey, it means that any touch point that user experience will be part of will can be called UX journey. It emphasizes the important intersections between user expectations and business requirements. So on the internet, if you everyone go search UX journey, you may also see a reference called customer journey. So what is the difference between customer journey and UX journey? So user experience basically focuses on the ease of use. For example, an app, a commercial website, or other digital channels. That this UX design focuses on research, design, and development of those visitors and how they interact with the application and how the application actually interface look like. However, a customer experience concerned more with a wider multi-channel experience of the customer as part of the overall business strategy. So customer journey mapping gives the organization a way of looking at these processes and the scores of how effective they are in each process. For example, if a customer came across a brand, for example, a runner wanted to find a sport shoes, if we go find an Nike shoes, for example, we may came across their store, we may go to their website, we may also use their apps, for runners. So we have a variety of ways or touch points we have to access to this brand, and all those are called customer experience. So I think a best example probably would be, say, buying a airplane ticket and going through the airport. So, for example, if I'm flying Delta, if I'm using Delta application on my mobile phone to purchase a ticket, it may be very simple. Like I go through the process very quickly and it lead me through everything very quickly. So it might be a great UX journey. However, when I go to the airport, when I go to the counter for Delta, and I have to wait a long time in front of the line, and I may also will be charged for luggage or anything that may make me unhappy, that's happening like during my experience traveling with Delta. So that could be considered customer journey because it's a whole process of me involving any touch point with the brand or service. Yeah. So UX journey is more concerning about how easy it is for me to go through a process, but customer journey accompanies the user throughout the whole journey with the brand and service. So at this point, I wanted to mention that we are actually entering a very abstract design phase. Some people really enjoyed such, I guess, ambiguity or abstract because there's a lot of open space that people can really start working with, and some do not really like this kind of area or phase because it's too abstract or too ambiguous. So some people may feel very uncomfortable, while the others feel it's very exciting because it's very explorative. From the first week since we started, we started with research and interview, and these are very concrete details that we can depend, the data on from the user, the stakeholder, and then we start developing personas. It's getting a little more ambiguous because we do not know the exact type, one person or individual that we're designing for. So this is more ambiguous. And when we get into the scenarios or vision, then we are getting into a very abstract zone because we are starting imagining nothing, starting to imagine something through nothing, so that we can start developing and designing for the product. So from there, we have this user environment design, UED, which we'll refer this word very much in later in this lecture. So this is also a very abstract phase because we have to define a overall picture of how the user connects with the context or the environment. And then from there, we will know more specifically maybe what interactions we have to design for the user when they use a certain product or feature. So it's getting a little better. And then coming down to the interface design, it's getting more and more concrete details. So this is the flow and process we will go through in this whole lecture. And in the coming weeks, we are going to get, I guess, a little more concrete on the real design part. So here, I guess, after the UX journey, I wanted to introduce the user environment design, which we also use the abbreviation called UED. What is a user environment design? So this user environment design is an explicit representation of a system work model. So almost like a blueprint for the user interface design. I guess imagine the user environment design as a floor plan for the new product, showing the places in the product, the function in that place, and the links between one place and another. So it shows the part of the product from the user's point of view and helps the team to think more structurally about the product. So user environment design is actually a formal design process developed by the author of the book called Contextual Design, whose name is Hugh Bayer and Karen Hosblatt. So they have their formal process, which is something we call it a focus area. Within the focus area, they usually have a place that's designed to do work. So let's take an example as, say, for example, designing a house, like a floor plan. In the house, we have kitchen for cooking, which is a functional space, and we also have living room for sleeping. That is also a functional place, and then living room for relaxing, for socializing. That is also a function for doing certain work. Yeah. However, aside from that, we also have tools or objects in each specific place. For example, in the kitchen, we may have stove, we may have sink. Those are called objects. And then in the bedroom, we have bed, maybe a lamp, things like that. It's also objects. And then in the living room, we have TV. So that is also the objects in the specific place. So in the book by Bayen and Hosbach, they have a formalism for this type of model in the UED, user environment design, which they have specific titles called focus area, what we have talked about, place to do the work, purpose, what it is for, and what the functionality is, specific things people can do there, and then what the objects are, things that can actually be manipulated in the space. And then links, where you can go from here to there, like how things connected together. And then issues, are there any known problems? How do people feel about, doing things in this specific place with certain connections? What are there any are there any constraints in this process? What can we do or we can't do in this space or in this process? So usually they look like something like this in the Bayer and Hasselblad model. There's a very specific way to write down on each piece of the focus area. So let's take a look at what's going on the left side first, because this is their formal model. They are not necessarily say representing each screen that you are going to design. It is more like displaying a specific focus area, even if there are multiple screens within this area. For example, in the kitchen, that you have a stove and a sink as object that you have to do things with, but they are actually in the same space. So make sure that you actually focus on the high level to do the work. So usually we display the title, what this whole focus area it is, and then write down the purpose, a short description of work that is done in this focus area. And then we'll write the user invoked function. Are there any automatic function? Are there any function clusters? What are the links, connects from this area to another focus area, which will lead to the later interactions, between space, between interfaces. And then are there any, links related to many other areas? So not only one link, but multiple links within this focus area. And then we also have work objects, something similar that what we made examples, the stove and sink in the kitchen. And then constraints and then issues that exist in this focus area. So however, if you take a look on the right hand side, this is a more like a modified version of what we are going to use for the UED display. So basically we are going to do the same, write a title, what the focus area it is like. We will also write the purpose, what the short description is for the work done in this area. Instead, we will combine function and action together. So what things will the user be doing right here in this area? We have to mention that. And we also have to refer the relationships. So basically what this focus area are related and need to be easily accessible from here. And then it's the work objects, things that can be manipulated or changed in this area. Status. Does this focus area have different status? It needs to be in. For example, if we cook in the kitchen and the stove may look differently from the beginning, to the end when after we cook. So it should have different status. And refer to the user interface design. It may, relate it to like before you fill in anything or after you fill in anything, before you click or after you click, what will happen, things like that. And then we have persona constraints or concerns. So what is the persona concerned about when they are engaged? Like would the person worried when things get messy? Would they feel happy when things get organized? Things like that. So on the right hand side, this part is what we are going to use as the model. But you may also notice that in the Blackboard, I have attached another experience map for the Rail Europe experience map. So over there, you can see that on those maps, people designers have focused on capturing the overall user experience. For example, they will put how user were thinking, feeling, and how they're concerned along the process. So I have put that attachment in Blackboard. You can also add those into your content if you wanted to. It is not a requirement, but you can choose between the left part, which is the formal UED display, or the right hand side, which is the revised version of this. Or you can add other like sections if you have seen good user experience maps display throughout the internet. So let's make an example with our current application, say the event planner. For example, if we wanted to search vendors, this is a focus area that we're going to put as a title. So basically our purpose is to provide a place for persona to search for various types of event vendors. The action, when they come to this focus area, they have to definitely search for a variety of vendors and then filter through the results based on the variables, and then maybe add one or two to their favorites, and then you use those as their real vendors they choose for the event. In this process, the relationship is when you click on the vendor detail, maybe some kind of event calendar or budget will pull out from the default area, and you can see the detail of the vendor, for example. And so for the work objects, we'll definitely need the vendor profiles, with the different details underneath vendors. And we also need the status. So for example, if I searched a certain vendor, would this app be able to remember my recent search? Is it dependent or not dependent on specific event status? So that will be considered throughout this focus area. And the personas concern, for example, if we actually do not have many vendors available, the software will not function properly. So basically, the prerequisite is that we need a number of vendors to be inserted in the system prior to launch. So basically, this is an example on the UED models. So if you wanted to develop a UED process, basically follow this, several process or steps. The storyboard, is basically the scenario that we have developed through week 6. And through each scenario that you have developed, try to go find the different focus area, which is the coherent area to do the work. And then what actions, people can take in the focus area, and what relationship, what does this to do, what does this focus area has to do with other areas, how they link together in certain way, and then what objects are being made, manipulated, changed in this focus area during the process. And then what about the persona concern? Anything that you think it is important for you to remember about the persona when they are doing this is important. So in this process, you will see an example of the on the Blackboard on the UED, so that you will see how this whole focus area, each focus area was displayed and how they link or connect together. So this is the second UX map that we are talking about. So the first one is UX journey, and the second one is UED, user environment design, and the third one we are going to talk about is vision diagram. So vision diagram, through Steve Baby, who is the principal of Mad Studio. So he said that a UX vision is a short statement. Actually, I made a typo here. It's Steve Baty, Baty, but I guess the presentation, the keynote actually auto changed the the naming, so sorry about that. Yeah, I guess last name is Baby is pretty interesting. So basically, he mentioned that the UX vision is a short statement or visualization that communicates the essence of the experience you are attempting to enable for user, customers, or guests. So a UX vision definitely anticipate a future outcome, and that is the reason why such a vision can be so powerful. So an online platform called UX Matters, they have actually mentioned two types of UX vision. So one type is the vision for implementing UX within a company, because with such vision, basically it will describe what the company would like to do or would like to be after the company achieved a certain integration of that feature or product. So what would customer and users think about it? How would the product life cycle or management process look like? They have to think about that within a company setting. Another type is called a vision for a product. So UX vision diagram basically for a product will describe the product characteristics once it's built, and then how would it look like and feel like, and what is the different and how is it different and better from today's product. So it will basically talk about all the difference of the product vision diagram. So the way that we address each of this vision is different, but the overall goal is the same. You wanted to make sure that in the end, users of an interactive system will have the best experience possible. So let's see. How are we going to make vision diagram? Basically, we have to meet the persona's needs and goal. Capture how the solution will fit into a persona's lifestyle. Basically, also understanding what the motivation, or the reason that this persona will use this specific product or feature. And also, we have to meet the stakeholders' need and goal. Why would certain business, or stakeholder wanted to develop such a product or feature, and how would they, achieve what they want in this process? In this process, we are not developing too much in details. That does have a limitation on the technology and interface design, but we will focus more on the interface design later in the later weeks. So do not get into too much details on what button they have to click, or specifically like what actions they will be lead to. So not too much detail, but enough, I guess, to get you through this whole vision diagram. Lastly is that we also wanted to show how the persona will be motivated to believe in a way that they can actually support the business need. So because this vision diagram is also a map, so you can choose to do either a UED, user environment design, or a vision diagram. Maybe depend on the group, what you wanted to do would be totally different. Sometimes, yeah, so I guess the difference between the UED and vision diagram is that if you wanted to design for a more complicated business application, the user environment design would be more appropriate. But if you wanted to design for a customer-based application, the vision diagram is probably more appropriate. So if we wanted to design the vision diagram, what would be the steps? The steps are, first, you wanted to get your whole team on the Zoom meeting. Some of you have 2, some of you have 3 in the team. If you can get it in person, that would be great. If not, then meet online through Google Hangout or Zoom meeting. Have your persona and scenarios ready. So those works are done through week 4 and week 6. In this part, we're also going to write a problem statement. We haven't done this, but basically, it's not that complicated. So here I had an example of what a problem statement is supposed to be. Basically, you talk about the design of a product X, certain name of the product, right, will help user achieve certain goal, achieve G, by giving them the ability to perform X, Y, and Z, so they can do certain things on the platform, right? With greater, say, whatever accuracy, efficiency, or convenience, or whatever you are adding to this product, without a problem A, B, and C. So you're solving certain problems through this product that they are currently experiencing. So this will dramatically improve company X customer satisfaction and increase market share. So not only met the so this product will not only met the customers' goal and needs, but also met the company's profit or market goal and needs. So basically this is an example problem statement, and you can utilize this as a template to develop your own. So we wanted to add that on the third step. So the fourth step is to assign one person the pen to document the process. So anyone from the team, if you have something that you can record on the screen, say for example, I have a iPad Pro, and I can use the pencil to actually draw something through the session. That will be wonderful. Yeah. But if you cannot actually do that through the screen, do that on the paper, okay? And then later you can scan or work it out in the design software and document, just scan those, post it in the Slack channel. So the next step is to walk through each of your scenarios as a group. The person, who is having the pen or documenting this process should sketch on the board what is happening. So basically, it is very important that two-person work together. You may want it to work separately and come later, to discuss things like that. But my experience is that it will work the best if both of you are talking at the same time and thinking through the problem at the same time, so you can contribute and add things, on top of each other's ideas. So it's always good to work together at the same time. And then lastly, is to rework your map to show how your scenarios will connect together to imagine the entire product. So basically, we will have two critique sessions. One is after you created this diagram, we will ask the class to critique and to give some feedbacks to you. And then on top of that, you will revise a little bit and submit your final one and make the presentation out of the revised version. So for the vision diagram, as you can see, there are more sketches involved. So basically, it's more probably like exercising or practicing sketch. So it's relatively loose, and it's also relatively flexible and basic compared to the UED, user environment design process. So depend on your need or the selection of your team, you can choose to create a UED or a UX vision diagram. So whichever your team feel most comfortable with. Yeah. So on Blackboard, I have also attached a previous student work. So is an example from a student called Mario. Everybody can take a look of how she walks through the process, using Sketch with some visual assistant. And I think that's a great example to have a big picture of how this UED or how this vision diagram would look like. Okay, that's this week's lecture and an assignment. And I look forward to see everybody's assignment on the UX maps.